For our next speaker, I'm pleased to welcome Joshua. He's like the head of protocol at Synapse DAO. And yeah, I think what they're trying to do is like quite ambitious as well, because they're not tackling, in a way, fundamental research. They're directly going like for the big conglomerates of pharma. And he will tell us more about it. Take it away. Thank you.
Thanks. Has anybody heard of Synapse DAO before? Hands up. Yes, good. 2, 3, 4, wonderful. Biggest fans. So I'm going to just quickly walk you through Synapse, the ecosystem that we're building. As you can see here, it's Web3 empowered pharma innovation. Okay, so as Max mentioned, we're actually trying not to tackle so much the DAO infrastructure. We're using DAO infrastructure, we're using tokenomics, we're using on-chain aspects, but we're doing this to actually upgrade the existing pharma institutions in a collaborative way, rather than building something separate. We know that our health depends on a broken system. The broken system in question here is the pharmaceutical industry, right? There are many things that we could talk about as issues with the pharmaceutical industry. We could talk about capital accumulation. We could talk about power concentration. But here we're going to talk about the inefficiencies and the fundamental problems with the speed of science and the outcomes that has on patients, and how decentralization can actually improve some of these things. So if we are depending on a broken system, what if we could change the system? I think everybody who's building in this room is trying to build something to change the system. As I mentioned, it's important to note that this protocol is not built as a challenge to replace, it's a challenge to complement and improve the existing system. So our job and our mission at the moment is focusing on this area here, which is the translational research gap. So you have the early stage research, which is largely funded by governments and academia and maybe philanthropy. And then in the end here, you have the private sector or the pharma, which is where that research is scaled up into a final product. In the middle here, once you have the research, before it becomes a product, you have this area which actually receives very little funding, and it takes a long time to get through that. This is a problem that many of the bio.DAOs in particular are also trying to solve. So the 3 core problems that we believe at Synapse DAO we can solve is, firstly, prolonged and costly R&D processes. This is due to many issues, including centralization, including inefficiencies, including lack of access to resources, limited access to capital and expertise. The capital is siloed. The capital is being directed towards assets which are almost proven already to make money, and that creates cash cows in the research space. You know, longevity is one of those places that attracts a lot of capital, and for good reason, right? It's a very attractive investment prospect. There's a lot of good outcomes, but there are also other parts of the research paradigm, the medical paradigm, that need to be researched also, and they receive less funding because it's less attractive. Even on stage earlier today, Aubrey was mentioning that the longevity field, in the way that it's being tackled now, is receiving more money through AI sort of processes rather than the fundamental research. And here, systemic inefficiencies, the regulatory environment, the centralization of narratives, the centralization of desires of investments is causing most research here, 88% of research, to not actually be researched, to not actually be funded. And this is obviously a very big problem, because 88% of diseases not being solved would be terrible for the humanity, right? So 12% of diseases or research being tackled actually concentrates the problems. So our mission is to translate the most promising scientific and human capital, that includes researchers and people who are working on something that is not yet productized, and turning it into high quality equity. Now, this is not something we'd like in crypto. We'd like to talk about tokens, but equity is something that is very important to the Synapse DAO model, and I'll show you why in just a second. The idea is that by taking this decentralized progress, this research, this human capital, and turning it into high quality equity which can be sold on traditional markets and traditional pharma venture banners, we can transform this innovation into something that's more valuable for the individual through a decentralized mechanism. The individual here being the patient, but also the individual investor or the researcher. Synapse as an ecosystem has 2 core parts. We have the Pharma Protocol, which is the decentralized on-chain aspect. And then we have Synapse Sciences, which is the traditional venture builder, an accredited investor arm in the US. The DAO is owned by an association in Switzerland, but this is a true decentralized protocol. And Synapse Sciences is a true centralized investment protocol. There's a synergy here between the 2 of them, and I think it's very unique in the space. So the Pharma Protocol is the first ever Web3 platform designed to expand and decentralize the centralized sourcing methods. Here's a brief image of what we have. On the right here, Synapse Pharma Protocol. This is the decentralized aspect here. So in the center, this central box, this is the Pharma Protocol. This is the Synapse DAO. Think of it like a central index that holds a portion of all of these sub-indexes. These sub-indexes are called seasons, okay? Each season is about a different specific disease area. So we might have Alzheimer's or breast cancer or aging or whatever it is, right? Each of these seasons focuses on one specific disease area. The reason for putting it into specific seasons like this is to concentrate the mind share, concentrate the capital, and focus it on specific solutions for specific research areas. However, we don't want to be limited in scope by just going, for example, for one research area. So the Pharma Protocol itself acts as an index of all of these underlying seasons. These underlying seasons are themselves sub-DAOs. They have their own token, for example, the aging token. But these tokens are only obtainable by taking your pharma position and staking it in that season. Okay, so it's not something that you would be getting on a traditional ICO token sale. You take it, you get your pharma tokens from the open market, you stake, unlock them, and you get staked pharma. You then take your staked pharma position, which is a share of the index, and you choose additionally one or many seasons to stake into. When you stake in the central Pharma Protocol, you're generating exposure to this yield, to this fund. So the longer the time you're in the Pharma Protocol, the more access to the index you're getting. And likewise, if you then stake in the seasons, you get more access, more exposure to that specific index that you're passionate about. So these seasons are basically sub-DAOs to govern and to monetize research area specific ventures. This is the decentralized aspect. Then what happens is Synapse Sciences, which is the centralized venture arm, actually takes these early stage research assets and scales them up in a traditional venture building way. Okay? It uses its resources, it uses its capacities, it uses its existing investor network and partnerships to take research to the next step, including giving it resources, including giving it capacities for scaling up the technology, and then distributing it to existing real world entities, including institutions. And you'll see in just a moment that Synapse Sciences is unique in its connections, right? It's unique in the fact that it's actually a very well connected existing entity with many people who are deep in the pharma industry. So what we have here is unique decentralized mechanisms for accessing yield combined with the existing system which creates a lot of revenue. The revenue then comes back into the individual seasons and therefore into the index. And the stakers get exposure to all of that. So everybody can participate in the paradigm, which is interesting. Here are some of the features. I'll just go through the headings for you. So Synapse Sciences, as I mentioned, is a real-world entity. And so this is a product of that, which is very exciting. It's not just a brand new decentralized entity. We have governance, we have multiple things underneath this, multiple seasons underneath this, multiple capabilities underneath this, including the venture building. We have, I haven't got much time, so we have a lot of on-chain mechanisms such as on-chain IP. We can use things such as impact investment for philanthropy, where philanthropists can actually donate through on-chain mechanisms and get ownership over some of that returns, which is brand new for philanthropy. One of the exciting parts about a decentralized mechanism is that you can actually have decentralized labor, global sourcing, decentralized participation, and decentralized liquidity provision to the entire process, which you couldn't do before. And so a bit more on Synapse Sciences. Synapse Sciences is a venture fund at its heart, but it's not just a venture fund. Synapse Sciences provides many more things than just money. It provides operational resources, it provides its expertise, and it provides operational scoping. It can take the product from research into final distributed product and sell it to big pharma through its connections and through its operational capacities. It provides one-on-one support for the researchers to turn it from research into product. Here are some of the products, some of the companies and partnerships that we're working with. You can see names on there that are well recognized. You'll see in a minute that the co-founders of this product are both from Novartis, current acting CSO and previous acting CSO of Novartis US. As you can see here, lots of connections. There was recently maybe last year, a paper published in Nature, the Nature Biotech bio.xyz paper, which many people may remember. That was published by these guys, in fact. And here's the tree. At the base of the tree, Simone and Scott, the two founders. These guys are top in their field. You just have to speak to them for one moment to realize how well connected they are. And it's difficult sometimes to just sort of talk about a product and rely on connections. But in this space, as most people are aware, having that legitimacy, having that connections when it comes to deal flow and sourcing money from Big Pharma is incredibly important. And so that's a unique advantage that brings Synapse up into the next step. So the foundry model of Synapse Sciences, as I mentioned, is to build the venture. So it takes you from pre-seed funding. As a researcher, you can come to a season and get sort of like early stage research funding in the decentralized season. Once it's recognized as a valuable asset, you get pre-seed funding. Your pre-seed funding then can be taken into the venture building arm. You get full development of the venture building, access to the expertise. Your idea becomes from research to reality to product, and the product is then sold to the pharma providers, pharma allocators. And these are the competitive advantages of Synapse DAO as we see it. We are the first mover in pharma DeFi. Notice it doesn't say DeSci, it was a strategic choice. Pharma DeFi is this concept of actually utilizing the financial instrumentation of Web3 to actually financialize pharma assets rather than to do all the science on chain. I'm a huge DeSci advocate myself, but that's not what this protocol is all about at its heart. At its heart, it's about utilizing on-chain liquidity mechanisms, on-chain governance mechanisms to turn early-stage research into marketable pharma assets. Global network, local impact is something we're very passionate about, which is using everybody's knowledge around the world where relevant to make an impact for the people on the ground, those that are suffering from diseases, those patients that require certain medicines that they can't access. We can use the global network to provide that access for them. Dynamic agility in research and development through on-chain funding mechanisms is a very underrated aspect of DeSci. We are very excited about revitalizing sleeping innovation. I think many people in this room have recognized that sleeping IP assets are one of the biggest sources of innovation and actually a very low-hanging fruit for making lots of money, right? There's some people who have done a lot of the foundational research and universities just don't want to leverage them. And so if we can purchase those, turn them using our venture arm into an effective product and sell them, that's a huge win. And likewise, decentralized investment and participation. If you know that you can stake and get an APY in future venture sales, then that's quite exciting, even if you're not a pharma investor. I don't think we have time for questions, but if you have any, talk to me outside. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, find Josh. He's going to be around. We can really have to move on because we're on a tight schedule, but thank you.